He was a billionaire. People knew him through billion-dollar deals, his captivating speeches in the media, and the rumors swirling around his glamorous life behind closed doors. But no one knew that the biggest shock of his life didn't come from financial numbers, but from an old wooden house tucked away in a remote countryside. There, amidst the dust and the scent of aged wood, he found a diary faded by time. Those pages didn't just tell the story of a woman who once lived there. They revealed a stunning truth: that woman was his birth mother. A mother he had never known, never called mom, and who seemed as if she never existed. To the world, he was the embodiment of success. The press called him the man who turns everything he touches into gold. Every contract he signed was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, every word he spoke was analyzed as a market signal. He represented ambition, speed, and power. But only one person knew the truth behind the spotlight: himself. Behind the tailored suits and rehearsed smiles was a heart so exhausted it felt empty. Each morning, he woke not to hope for something new, but just to fulfill the duties he had to bear. Stronger coffee, longer emails, back-to-back meetings. He was so busy he no longer recognized who was really beside him, because everyone around had their own reasons to be there. When the limousine took him away from the glass skyscraper each night, he didn't go home, he returned to a lavish box where no one was waiting. No laughter. No warmth. He once thought success would fill the gaps in his heart. But now, he realized, the more fame he gained, the lonelier he became. Sometimes, in a room full of dozens of executives, he could hear the deafening silence inside his mind, a silence that hurt. Am I really living? Or just existing? That question repeated like an unhealed wound. He knew if he didn't change, one day he would wake up feeling nothing at all. Late at night, when the city lights dimmed, he sat alone in his penthouse, staring at the distant ribbons of light below. No one knew that a man who had the whole world in his hands had no one truly beside him. Messages came only when stocks moved, calls were only about business. No one ever asked, "Are you okay?" In a way that truly cared, he suffered from sleepless nights. Dark circles under his eyes despite medical teams around to care for him. But they couldn't heal the emptiness in his heart. He tried traveling far, meditating, reading books, but all were just temporary escapes. Nothing really healed him. One night, he played soft music, poured expensive wine, and cried, not out of sadness, but out of numbness. A kind of exhaustion that money couldn't fix. He remembered his childhood, days in the orphanage, though lacking, were close-knit. A hand to hold, a hug, a loving glance, all gone now. In the current world, people only saw him as numbers, as net worth. No one saw the little boy once trembling from the cold, longing for someone to call him child. Night after night, he whispered to himself, "I'm so tired." One gloomy morning, like any other, he scrolled through hundreds of emails, investment reports, financial statements, all in endless cycles. But then, amidst the sea of information, a small picture caught his eye, an ad for an old farm, a tilted wooden roof, surrounded by green meadows and thick trees. Nothing special to most, but to him. That photo made his heart skip a beat. Without knowing why, he saved the image. All day, instead of reading NASDAQ numbers, he zoomed in on that photo dozens of times. He imagined the smell of fresh grass, the chirping of crickets at night, a sky full of stars, things he had never experienced. Close associates thought he was tired, smiled politely. But they didn't know, inside him, a strange longing was stirring, for a real life, unfiltered, unhurried, without calculation. A few days later, haunted by the image, he decided to contact the seller. An elderly woman with a soft voice like the countryside breeze. He didn't ask the price or bargain. Just hearing her say, "Nobody's lived on that farm for a long time," was enough for him to say yes. Even he couldn't explain why he felt like he was returning somewhere. Once so familiar, less than a week after the call, he left the office with a small suitcase. No press conference, no internal announcements, no goodbyes. His disappearance shocked executives, worried shareholders, and stirred the media. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire missing." Running from what? But no one had answers. He was simply too tired to explain. He bought an old truck and drove nearly 500 miles to the countryside. Bumpy dirt roads, thick trees, birdsong, sounds he had never heard so clearly before. When the truck stopped in front of the old wooden house, he stepped out and took a deep breath. The scent of grass, earth, and a strange memory, even though he had never been here. His heart slowed, and for the first time in years, he felt alive. No Rolex watches, no constant phone ringing. Only the wind and silence. On his first night at the farm, he listened to insects instead of traffic. In his dream, he saw a woman picking wildflowers by the stream, her back turned to him. He called out, but she only smiled and vanished. When he woke up, tears soaked his pillow. Though he didn't know why. He felt close to that woman. His arrival soon drew attention from locals. A stranger with expensive leather shoes, fumbling to light a fire. People speculated, a reclusive writer, a washed-up actor, even a fugitive. But no matter what was said, he stayed silent. No visits to town, no trips to the supermarket, just quietly living on the farm. Once, a lost boy wandered near the garden. He gave the boy water and biscuits, gently led him back to the village. The boy told others, he looked sad, but kind. People noticed him tending flowers, repainting the house, fixing fences, no help hired, no show-off. Curiosity grew, but respect for the quiet space he created also grew, and in that silence, he began to hear his own inner voice more clearly than ever. That day, under the warm sun, he decided to clean the old barn behind the garden, untouched for ages. Inside smelled musty, cobwebs everywhere, rusty old tools. He lifted old cloths, moved decayed wooden crates. Until he found an old chest hidden behind sacks. Dark brown. Rusty hinges, but still sturdy. He used an iron key hanging nearby to unlock it. When the lid popped open, a thin layer of dust rose, carrying the scent of old wood and something strangely familiar. Inside were a few antiques, a handmade wool scarf, a yellowed letter, and a thick cloth-bound book. He picked up the book, the cover embroidered by hand with red thread, a small line in the corner, "For my beloved son." His heart froze. He sat down, hands trembling, and opened the first page. The first words appeared. And a journey he never imagined was about to begin. When the late afternoon sunlight slanted through the dusty warehouse window, he crouched down, panting after dragging an old chest out from a dark corner. The heavy wooden trunk was locked with a rusty clasp worn down by the years. Using a rusty screwdriver, he gently pried it open. The chest creaked loudly, releasing a thin cloud of dust with the scent of time. Inside, there was no gold or anything valuable, only a faded linen cloth wrapped around something soft and rectangular. He carefully unfolded each layer, as if afraid to damage something sacred. It was an old notebook, its cover made of cotton fabric embroidered with pale roses, worn at the edges. When he opened the first page, the scent of old paper mixed with a faint hint of lavender rose, an aroma that evoked something distant yet deeply familiar. Delicate and slender handwriting appeared on the yellowed paper. The words seemed to dance under the weak sunlight. A strange feeling crept into his chest, as if he were about to step into a completely different world, a world he never knew he once belonged to. His fingers froze as he read the first line, "For the son whom his mother has never held in her arms." His heart felt squeezed tightly. He sat dazed, staring at those words in disbelief. The word mother, why was it here? And why say never held? In his life, he had never known his birth mother's face. He grew up in a kind, well-off adoptive family, yet always felt an emptiness he couldn't name. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself, but his hands trembled as he turned to the next page. The second line appeared, shaky and full of emotion. "If you are reading this notebook, it means a miracle has happened." His mind spun. No way. This was no coincidence. This was a message, not meant for anyone else, but for him. There was a connection here, an invisible thread tied tightly across time. He closed his eyes briefly, preparing himself to embark on a journey through memories not his own, but awakening a part of his heart that had never been touched before. The following lines were like sharp knives piercing his soul. The mother wrote that she was once a 19-year-old girl, pregnant under circumstances where she was not allowed to keep the baby. Forced by family, judged by society, with no one standing by her side. She fled to a distant place, gave birth quietly, then had to give the baby away as soon as he cried his first breath. Every word she wrote carried tears. "The day you were born, I was not allowed to touch you. I only heard your cries, then silence. They took you away, and I was sent back to a life without a heart." He could not imagine such pain, the pain of losing a child without ever holding him. In the years that followed, she never married, living alone in this small farmhouse, recording every memory, every longing, every dream of the child she did not know where he was now. She wrote as if holding on to a fragile hope that one day, that boy, her son, would read these lines. He knew he was adopted, and the adoption file only recorded that his birth mother was a 19-year-old girl who gave birth in a rural clinic, without revealing her real name. When he read the part of the diary that described exactly the place of birth, the date, and the delivery room, he felt chills. It could not be a coincidence. She described the newborn bracelet given to the baby, with the mark E7, the same mark his adoptive parents had kept in the file to give to him when he grew up. In a quiet note, she wrote, "If you have this mark, then you are that child." He burst into tears. Doubt turned into undeniable truth. All these years, he thought he didn't need to know who his birth mother was. But now, as these pages came alive, his heart ached from a bond never named. He began to understand that his life did not start in boardrooms or on Wall Street, but from a pain of separation. He sat through the entire afternoon. The light faded, but he did not turn on the lamp. The words seemed to glow inside him. That mother did not only write about her pain, but also about the dreams she had if she could be with her son, taking him to the park for the first time, making chicken soup when he was sick, telling stories on Christmas Eve. Every year, she wrote a birthday wish, from age 1 to age 40. Today you are 10 years old. I don't know where you are, but I hope you are smiling and loved by someone. This year you are 30, surely you are a successful man. I wish I could see that. Each wish pierced his heart. He had thrown countless grand parties, standing before hundreds of people, yet never knew that somewhere, a woman silently wished him happiness, just through words on paper. When he closed the diary, it was completely dark. He remained motionless, listening to the insects outside in the meadow and the wind blowing through the window. Inside him, a storm was rising. Questions flooded in. Why was she here, on this very farm? Why was he drawn here? Could it be his own blood? He stood up, walked out to the yard in front of the barn, and looked up at the starry sky. For the first time in many years, he no longer felt like a lonely billionaire. Perhaps, all along, someone had been watching over him, with all her heart, though never appearing, and now, he knew what he had to do. He would find out everything, not just to confirm his identity, but to fill the emptiness in his heart, the place that belonged to a mother who loved him silently all her life. The next morning, after a sleepless night, he sat by the small desk in the hastily repaired barn house. His trembling hands flipped through each page of the diary, tracing every line written in faded ink. Every name, place, and date was carefully noted down on a clean sheet of paper. There were unfamiliar names, addresses that were just small roads in a remote town, nowhere to be found on any major map. He felt like a detective, searching for tiny clues to piece together the life of the mother he had never known. Each piece of information he remembered, every small detail confused him but also sparked a fierce hope. He thought, if his mother really was here, he would find her and return to her the part of life she had lost. Sunlight filtered through the dusty window, illuminating the scattered notes. He murmured names, dates, and geographical hints like messages guiding him on a difficult but meaningful journey. The journey stretched on for many days. He drove his old car along narrow village roads, endless fields, and moss-covered tiled houses. The first stop was the old church in the town center, where his mother was said to have often come to pray. There, the friendly church caretaker told him about a young woman who had lived alone on a farm outside town, often sitting silently during quiet afternoons. Next, he visited the mayor's office, the place where the town's records and files had been kept for decades. Through those old documents, he discovered his mother's name along with some residence registrations and medical records. Each clue slowly unveiled itself like pieces of a past puzzle. Helping him picture his mother's life through those yellowed papers, he also visited the old orphanage where she had worked after losing her child, a place where she tried to keep close to other unfortunate children just as she held her son in her heart. Each place was a story, a memory reborn, contributing to the truest portrait of that woman. He went to a small village near the farm to meet longtime residents. Among them was an elderly woman with silver hair, deep eyes, and a warm voice like the familiar tones of home. She recalled knowing a woman who lived alone at the old farm, quiet and reserved, but with sorrow forever shining in her eyes. She remembered clearly that every evening at sunset, that woman would sit by the window looking out over the fields, silently crying as if waiting for something that would never come. The old lady also said that the woman once confided she had a son but had been separated from him since he was very young. Hearing this story, his heart ached with every beat. The image of that lonely mother sitting there, holding a silent pain, mirrored the loneliness he had felt. He felt even more determined to find the truth so no one would have to live in such solitude and loss. Near the end of one diary page, he suddenly found a faded black and white photo. It showed a woman standing before the wooden gate of the farm, her sad eyes yet radiating gentle beauty and love. What sent chills down his spine was that the face matched the woman from a dream he had many years ago, a vague but haunting figure. That dream had kept him restless every night, as if a silent call from the past was echoing back. He never imagined it wasn't a dream, but a forgotten memory awakened by this diary and that small photo. At that moment, he felt as if all the pieces of his life were coming together, as if fate had led him to the right place and time to meet the mother he never knew. When he asked about the woman, he learned she had passed away years before after a long battle with a cruel heart disease. What choked him up was that she died alone, with no relatives by her side, and never knowing her son had grown up successful. He felt sorrow knowing she had spent her final days holding on to the tiny hope of one embrace from her son, a hope that never came. Those diary pages were no longer just memories but words left unsaid, feelings never voiced. He promised himself that he would not let his mother's silent sacrifices and love be in vain. He would hold on to those memories and return that love to himself. Finally, he visited a small cemetery nestled among green hills where his mother was laid to rest. On her tombstone, the deeply engraved words left him speechless, spent her whole life waiting for a hug from her son. Each word felt like her final sigh, the enduring sorrow of a lifetime. He knelt down, tears streaming uncontrollably. The flood of loss, regret, and love overwhelmed his heart like a storm. At that moment, he understood that his journey to find his mother was not just about reclaiming a lost relative, but about finding himself, the forgotten part of him, the love and compassion his mother had quietly given from the very beginning. He vowed to live meaningfully, so that love would never be in vain. After many difficult days on the journey to find his mother, he decided not to stop at just reading the diary, but to begin living each day as his mother once lived in this old house. He personally cleaned the kitchen and searched for simple ingredients that his mother had recorded in the diary, simple dishes filled with love. In the morning, he turned on the old radio in the living room, letting the nostalgic melodies and gentle broadcasts from years ago fill the space. Those songs seemed magical, making the house feel warmer, as if his mother were sitting beside him. He also planted the flowers his mother loved, small, lovely blossoms blooming on the windowsill. Caring for them every day, he felt a strange connection, as if his mother's love was still present around him, gentle and eternal. These seemingly small acts helped him deeply understand life and the maternal love he had never known. Inside the wooden chest, besides the diary, he discovered letters that had never been sent, old toys carefully wrapped, gifts his mother had prepared for her son but never had the chance to give. Standing in that space, he was overwhelmed with emotion as he touched each item, imagining the moments his mother once dreamed of. He pictured her smiles, gentle hugs, afternoons spent talking together, birthdays with candles blown out. All those things were now only in his imagination, moments that had never come to be. Each time, his heart ached but was also filled with a fierce love for the distant yet incredibly close mother. He understood that even though they never had the chance to be together, she had loved him with all she had. Reliving his mother's life like a miracle changed him day by day. The man once seen as cold, powerful, and distant in the business world suddenly became gentle and deeply caring. He learned to care for himself and those around him sincerely. Friends and colleagues began noticing his surprising transformation. He smiled more, listened better, and spent more time on simple things. It was a change no one expected, not even himself, but for him, the most important thing was not the outward change, but the warmth in his soul, the deep empathy for his mother's pain and love, a woman he had never met but who was always present in his heart. not wanting the diary's words to remain silent memories, he began recording himself reading each page in his warm voice. Each word echoed like a whisper from the past, an invisible bridge between two generations. He felt as if he were talking to his mother, listening to her recount every story and emotion she had experienced. These sounds not only helped him preserve memories but also kindled the love between them even stronger. Despite the decades apart, through each recording, he felt his mother's love more vividly, a great source of strength for him to keep living and loving. After spending time closely connected with his mother's diary, he decided to start writing his own. Blank pages filled with sincere confessions and deep thanks to the mother he never met. He told her about his life, his loneliness, the difficult days he had gone through, and the changes in his soul he had experienced. It was a late reply, but filled with so much love and gratitude. Writing the diary helped him feel closer to his mother. As if they were having a direct conversation, erasing all distances of time and space. It was a spiritual gift he gave himself and also a way to preserve their sacred mother-son bond. One peaceful evening, sitting on the porch of the small house, he looked up at the starry sky sparkling above. The stars shone like guiding lights, like tender calls from the past. In that quiet moment, he whispered to himself and to his distant mother, "I'm home now, Mom." The whisper was gentle but full of overwhelming emotion, the happiness of finally coming home, returning to his roots and unconditional love. He felt that invisible connection, as if his mother was smiling and opening her arms wide to embrace her son after years apart. It was a new beginning, a meaningful life full of hope. After months of relentless struggle, he realized it was time to let go of everything that had once meant everything to him. His decision to step down from the billion-dollar corporation he had built with his own hands shocked many in the business world. The media immediately raised countless questions. Is this famous billionaire abandoning his empire? Or does he have a bigger plan? He paid no attention to the scrutinizing eyes or the baseless rumors. For him, this was a necessary step to break free from material and mental chains, to finally live true to himself after years caught in the whirlpool of fame and pressure. The final days in the office were when he felt his exhaustion most deeply. He packed up mementos, signed papers transferring the leadership to his successor, someone he trusted completely. In his heart, a strange relief settled, as if a heavy burden that had weighed on his shoulders for years had just been lifted. Returning to the small farm, he immediately began repairing every corner of the house. Everything was kept intact. From the old curtains to the faded dining table. He wanted to preserve every little detail as a way to honor his mother's memories and love. He hired skilled craftsmen, bought seedlings matching the flowers his mother used to plant, and personally tended to every brick and window each day. Every detail on the farm seemed to come back to life, carrying the breath of the past and a new vitality. Though sometimes tired and discouraged, he persevered because he knew he was building not just a house, but a symbol of maternal love, hope, and the fierce will to live. Not content with merely preserving the past, he wanted to turn the farm into a place to share and spread love. He decided to open its doors to orphans, single mothers, and lonely elderly people in the area. Each day, children's laughter echoed throughout the garden, and stories shared among strangers created a warm and close-knit community. He organized classes and gatherings to help people rediscover joy and hope in life. Within just a few months, the farm was no longer a lonely place but had become a spiritual refuge. A common home for souls needing love and care. The story of the mother in the diary gradually spread through the small community. Locals came, not just to visit the farm but to listen as he told them about his mother, about the hardships and unconditional love she had for her child. Some couldn't hold back tears hearing the heartfelt diary entries, others shared their own life stories, losses, broken dreams, and secret hopes. From these encounters, he felt a deep connection not only with his mother but also with those around him. He understood that love and sharing were the greatest powers to overcome any challenge. As time passed, the farm grew into a peaceful sanctuary, healing the hearts that had once been wounded. Visitors found not only material help but also genuine love and profound empathy. The story of his mother, her sacrifice and maternal love, was told and retold, becoming a symbol of unconditional love, a powerful feeling that transcends all barriers of time and space. That farm was no longer just an old home but a shining light for many hearts, a testament to the power of love and perseverance. To preserve and spread his mother's story, he decided to write a book titled The Mother in the Diary. The book not only recounted the journey to find his mother but also conveyed profound lessons about love, sacrifice, and the strength of forgiveness. Upon release, the book quickly touched the hearts of millions of readers. The sincere and moving words brought many to tears, resonated deeply, and gave people hope in their lives. The book became an inspirational symbol, a source of motivation for everyone to face their past, to love, and to dare to change themselves. It was the greatest gift he gave to his mother and to the world. After finishing the book, he didn't keep the story to himself. With a heart full of empathy, he began a journey across the country. From bustling cities to remote countryside, he stood before small crowds, sharing the story of a mother who never held her child, of the old farm, and of his journey to find himself. Everywhere he went, he saw sorrowful eyes, people lost and searching who found a glimmer of hope in his story. He witnessed how many hearts were broken by confusion and unhealed wounds. In each of their stories, he recognized himself from the past. Once lost and alone, he didn't just tell stories, he listened and embraced those pains with kindness and understanding. Every shared word, every story, gave strength to those who were faltering, helping them find light at the end of their path. But the story didn't end there. From his stories, many found courage to face the past they had once denied. Some who had lost faith and closed their hearts suddenly wept, empowered to forgive mistakes and mend fractured family bonds. He received letters and calls from all over, sharing touching reunions, hands clasped again after long separations, and hugs that healed every wound. Each story spread like a great wave, melting the ice within people's hearts. He knew that love and forgiveness were the most miraculous gifts we could give each other, the key to opening new doors for deeply wounded souls. The old farm became a gathering place for hearts to share and connect. Every year, on a special day, Mother's Day, laughter, singing, and tears of emotion filled the air. There were no media pressures, no flashy ads, only people coming together with sincere hearts. Single mothers, orphans, strangers suddenly became a family, lighting the flame of love and hope together. He quietly stood at the corner of the yard, watching those moments with overwhelming emotion. This was what he wished for most, a place where everyone could feel the power of motherly love. Whether real or in each person's heart, one peaceful afternoon, while everyone was cleaning the farm, an orphan boy looked up at him with clear eyes and asked, "Uncle, do you have a mother?" He looked straight into those innocent eyes, smiled gently, and answered, "You may not have your mother beside you, but you can always find her in loving words, in memories, and in your own heart." That simple sentence made the boy nod, as if understanding that love doesn't have to exist in a physical form but can live forever in many different ways. It was also a reminder to him that motherly love is immortal, able to overcome all trials and limits. In that peaceful moment, he stood before a mirror, looking deeply into his own eyes. The man before him was no longer the billionaire burdened by years of pressure and loneliness. He saw another version of himself, a man once abandoned, but also one loved in the quietest way. Every wrinkle and line on his face told the story of a long journey filled with challenges, but also full of love and transformation. He felt the maturity in his soul, a strength inside that helped him weather every storm. He smiled, knowing he had found his true self again, and that was the most precious thing in life. At sunset, soft sunlight filtered through the leaves as he sat quietly under the old tree by the farm. In his hands was the diary that had changed his life. His warm voice rose, as if telling a story to himself and to all who would listen. There are things we only realize the true value of when they are gone. But if the heart still lives, love will always find its way home. In that moment, he felt peace fill his soul, as if his mother had come back to him, though she never once held him in her arms. The story ended, but love, the greatest legacy, remained alive, inspiring hearts that know how to love and hope.